Hi everyone, today I'm going to take you through the buyer process from this book right here, Ninja Selling. If you have not read it, you need to. It is awesome. So I'm going to take you through the buyer process from Ninja Selling. Here at Opt, we firmly believe in the Ninja process. Ninja Selling, it's Larry Kendall's system for real estate agents to create daily and weekly habits that lead to success. So check out the book. That's my pitch. So let's get started with the buyer process interview. The buyer process interview is a tool we here at Opt use to better understand what our clients are looking for when they're buying a home. How do they expect the process to unfold? What are their non-negotiables? The buyer process takes the guessing game out of working with buyers, and it shows your clients that you have a proven system, this is key, to get them across the finish line and into a house. You can start the buyer process interview at different points while working with the client, depending on your relationship with them. If you're working with someone from your sphere of influence, you might start with the interview before showing them homes. If you're working with a client you don't know personally, you could do the interview after showing them a home. The best way to present the interview is to explain it as a part of your process. Keep saying the word process. People feel confident when they're working with a professional who has a proven process. You might say, the next step in my process of working with buyers is to sit down and learn a little bit more about what you're looking for. Or, hey, now that we've seen a few homes, the next step in the process I use is to hear more about you and your wants in a home and what comes next for us. You can hold the interview at a coffee shop, over Zoom, or whatever's most comfortable for your buyer. Start the conversation off with a Ford question. Ford stands for family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Asking a client a question about one of these four things starts the interview with a connection that you will make that will be something that you can hold on to and talk about in the future. Once you've connected, introduce the interview as follows. Hey, by the way, thank you so much for coming. I'd like to ask you a few questions that will help you find the right home along the way. Is it okay if I take notes? They'll say sure, and you'll jump right into it. Start the first question. Tell me a little bit about where you're living now. Well, we're in Beaverton. Okay, do you own your current home? Yeah, we do. Note here, if they are renting, still ask them the same questions. It doesn't matter if they're an owner currently or they're renting, you're still gonna get great information from them, from their answers, because they know the place that they're living in very well. Okay, and you're going to learn a lot about their likes and dislikes. Let's keep moving on. About how long have you owned the property that you're in? Let's see, we've owned it around 3 or 4 years. Okay, and tell me a little bit about your current home. It's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. I think we're 21 square feet. It's got a tiny yard, but it's got a good kitchen. They'll go on to describe it, but here's the key. This is a foundational question. You're establishing prior learning, and it makes them feel safe. You also might hear some things about what's not working for them in their current space. Let's get back into it. How many homes have you owned in your lifetime? Just the one. And if you can recall, when you purchased your current home, what was your process like for finding that home? In other words, how did you start looking? They'll say something along the line of, well, we drove around neighborhoods, we looked online, we went to open houses. My follow-up question to that is, and what did you do next? Well, we met an agent in an open house, or we got connected with an agent through a friend. How long did that process take you? Oh, let's see, it took us about 3 or 4 months. My next question might be, how did that process work for you? Well, it was a little choppy. We looked at too many homes, or maybe they say, it really went great. It doesn't really matter. You're learning about their process. And then I ask, is there anything that you'd like to change in the process? Well, we probably wouldn't want to look at as many homes, or we'd like the inspection part to be easier. Just allow them to describe what it is that they're looking for, and then the magic question. If you could wave a magic wand and have the process go just the way you like, what would that look like? And remember, when they're going to describe now is their ideal process for them, because in this pretend state, They'll tell you exactly how they would like it to look. I'd then ask, are you familiar with how real estate works in Tigard? They might say, yeah, no, or yeah, sure. And I follow up with, are you familiar with current real estate market conditions here? And they'll say anything from no to absolutely. And your response is, I'll be helping you understand that in a little bit. At this point, you can go through the buyer's packet with your buyer. This will explain what happens from this moment until you get them into the house. Your goal here is to demonstrate your process, not a sales pitch. From here, you'll move on to talk about what your goal is in the transaction. My goal is to get you into the right house and at the same time make sure you don't miss anything or pay too much. Note, we're addressing some of the 4 main buyer fears that we see in real estate. Missing out on something, paying too much, something wrong with the house, or losing the house that they want. You'll address the last 2 fears a little bit later on. So the next thing we're going to talk about with clients, and this might sound counterintuitive, we're going to talk to them about the process of elimination, not selection. I'd say we've got a ton of listings coming onto the market right now. What we're going to do is start eliminating those that don't work for you. What I've found is it's easier to eliminate items that won't work than to select. Let me give you an example, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. Would you consider a home with only 1 bathroom? No. Okay, well, we just eliminated 200 homes from our funnel. It's much easier to say no to something than it is to select. So we're going to continue to eliminate more and more homes as we go along. Ultimately, our goal is to get down to your top 3 favorites. We call this our rolling top 3 because you might have 3 in there, but you might not have found the right home for you, but we're still keeping a rolling top 3. And every time you find one that's better, we're going to kick one out. Okay? Once you find those top 3 that you love, I will run a comparative market analysis on homes in the area that are on the market or have sold recently to make sure you don't pay too much. Does this sound like a good process that will work for you? Great. Now let me ask you a question. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is just beginning to look today and 10 is you're ready to write an offer today, where are you in this process? Most people would say a 5 or 6 or 7. Now you'll be a great real estate agent and you'll ask, what would it have to happen today to get you to be a 10? They might respond with, well, we have to sell our current home. We'd have to find the right house. I need to get a job. We need to save $1. You're really going to know where they're at in this process. Whatever it is, this is the most important stuff that could have come up after you're under contract and could have tanked the transaction. You'll want to flush this out now so it isn't a problem later. Slow down and ask the questions. Is there anyone else involved in the transaction that would make it happen? They might mention a family member who is involved financially. Whatever it is, take your time and get all of it out and on the table so that it's clearly understood by you and your buyers. Now you're going to finally start talking about criteria. You haven't talked about it to this point, and this is to show your process before we get to the bedrooms and baths. Here's what I like to do for you. Note, if you're working with me, what I like to do is I like to give different lists to both sides. So if you're working with more than one buyer, make sure that they each make their own lists. I'd like you to make a list of everything you'd really like to have in your new home. And again, if there's potentially 3 buyers that are making decisions, each of them makes their own lists. When you're done, make a star next to the 3 most important things on your list. Make sure that they do this independently of each other. What it does is it lets the person in the relationship or people in the relationship who might not be as dominant have a chance to speak their mind, which is super important and they may not get to in the field. Give them a chance to write down their lists, then you'll take their lists, and I'm going to make a T-chart. On one side, I'm going to write the whats, and on the other side, I'm going to write the whys. So on my T-chart, I'm writing whats, and I'm writing whys. So on the whats, you might have something like 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, tall ceilings, etc. So I'm going to say 3 beds, 2 baths, tall ceilings. Go through each what and ask them why. Why do they want it? So you say you want three beds. Why do you want 3 beds? Well, we want one primary bedroom, and we want one office, and we want one gift wrapping room. Who knows what their criteria are, but now you understand exactly how they're going to use the space. So potentially, hey, could a one bedroom with two offices work for this buyer? Yes, you know how they're going to use the space now. And that's what we want, is we want to get to their criteria. So they might say, oh, well, we need 4 bedrooms. 1 can be an office, 2 can be an office. We need a garage because we have an RV parking, whatever it might be. You're going to find out why and what they're hoping to get from each feature without even seeing the home yet. One of the reasons why this process works so well is that when you're doing this interview, most people do it out in the field, but you're getting it all out on the table before you have to show them 30 houses that don't work. And sometimes you're diving into their mind and they haven't really thought these things through as much as that you're making them do when you're taking them through this process. You're getting clarity on what they actually need on paper instead of finding out what they need after showing them dozens of homes that don't work out. Okay, at this point you'll transition to talking about 85% perfect homes. And now you're going to say to your client, as we go out and see houses, I want us to adapt a rating system of 1 through 100. As we go through a house, you'll tell me wherever it ranks. Is it 70%, 60%, and here's why. If you find a house that's 85% or higher, I'd like you to consider putting that in your rolling top 3. Okay, here's why. Oftentimes people believe that there's going to be a home that's 100% perfect house for them. They'll see a house that's 85 or 90% perfect at the beginning of their search and expect that there's going to be another home just as perfect. After seeing 20 more homes, they're exhausted and they wish they bought the home at the beginning of their search. So I want to save you from that heartache. People are scared of missing out on something, and I understand that. But often you'll see the right home early, and I want to make sure you're ready to move if that is in fact the right home for you, because I don't want you to be too scared or trying to find something better so desperately. So you keep looking and then you're worn out. We'll explain this to them and we'll ask them how they feel about it. You might have a perfectionist on your hand and they might either even have another agent talking about how they'll find them the perfect home. Just listen to your buyer, talk them through, say, hey, we've done this many, many times. If you found a 90% perfect home, I believe that you can turn it into a 100% perfect home. Now you're going to address their fear of losing the house that they want. Talk with your client about the next steps. Say to the buyer, let's say we go out and look at homes and you find the perfect home for you, what would you do? Most people say, well, we'd buy it. Or they might say, we'd have to move some money around, liquidate a few stocks, and then we'd get our down payment together. This would be whatever has kept them from moving forward in the past. The last thing you want to explain to your clients is the idea of a cream puff house. The concept is it's a gray house, one that everyone wants. We like to use a fun common term between our buyers and ourselves. We use the cream puff. So if you're looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, nice backyard, and great kitchen, I'd call that a cream puff. The reason I tell you this is if we go out looking at houses, you'll know a cream puff when you see it. Here's the key. That's the same house that every other buyer is looking for. So when we see a cream puff, you may have to accelerate your time frame for making a decision dramatically. How do you feel about that? And then acknowledge their response. Oftentimes when I see a home with clients, we'll see a cream puff that they love on a Friday or Saturday, and they'll want to put an offer on it, but they're not pre-approved. They have to go through the process and have to wait to put in an offer till the next week. This is where we see people lose out on the home that they love. The next step in the process is getting pre-approved so that when we do find the right home for you, you can put in an offer as soon as you're ready. Here you can offer to get them in touch with Capital M Lending, our preferred lender, or you'll learn if they have a lender that they already prefer. The last thing that we talk about is inspections. The fourth buyer fear is inspections and that there's going to be something wrong with the house. This is where you walk your client through the get out of jail free cards, their contingencies, aka the seller's property disclosures, the property inspection, the title report, the appraisal. If you're working with first-time buyers, make sure to go into detail on each contingency they have so they have a good understanding of what to expect. Now that you've made it through the buyer process, you've done in 20 minutes what most agents do in 5 or 10 showing appointments. Your clients know you have a process and they're going to trust you far more because of that. They won't miss anything. They won't pay too much. They'll know if there's something wrong with the house, and they know that they won't lose the house that they love. I hope you take this and put it out into the field.